Thank you all so much for coming. I'm so excited to continue to see new faces tonight. Love it. I am going to turn it over to our beautiful panelists here to start introducing themselves. But I just wanted to give you a little background. I think it was about a year ago, I was in Indianapolis for an event that was called something akin to Slightly Awkward Conversations on Race and Difference. And I just loved that they just came out and said, this might be a little bit awkward, this might be hard for us to talk about these issues, but I think it's important for us to talk about them, and that's what Progressive Social Hour is all about. How can we be honest about challenges we have in our community and changes we'd like to see? And so that's why we're all here tonight. So thank you to all of you for being willing to share your stories tonight. So I think to get us kicked off for the panel, what I'd like to do is just have each of you go around, introduce yourselves, give us maybe a 2-minute spiel about what your story is, what brought you here tonight, what have been your experiences here in this community, what's important to you to share. You know, this is an equality panel. We're focused on equality of all types here, and these lovely folks have gathered to learn from your experiences. So who would like to start us off?
You want to start at the end?
Sure. No, I don't. You can hear me, right? Can you hear me? Awesome. Okay, I'm Michelle Chambers. Who am I? I'm an African-American woman that lives in Fort Wayne, Indiana, by way of California. My father left Fort Wayne in 1976 because Fort Wayne was very different. He was progressive. He was a forward thinker, and he wanted more for his children. Hence, I lived in California for 35 years. I hold a master's in public administration, small business owner, recently started working for the city of Fort Wayne. Prior to that, I worked in public service for 20 years, economic development, redevelopment, and community development. Last year, I cast my hat and ran for city council at large. Any of you had the opportunity to vote for me? Thank you, and you'll get to do it again in the future. So yes, absolutely, equality. I'm a black woman in Fort Wayne. Look in the room. Just one other one. So I'm always fighting, and 2, 3, kicking the ceiling. But that's okay. That's not an issue for me, because I believe in everybody's rights, equality for everyone, and more so, I believe in Fort Wayne. This is why I say they're going to throw the dirt on me here. What I would like to do is continue to be a change maker. I would like to see more of us think alike, be in positions to be change makers. There's a lot going on in Fort Wayne, and we need more change makers who think outside the box and think a little differently than the norm that's been happening the last decade. So I'll just leave it right there.
So I'm Han Vopatron. I came here in the late 70s as a refugee from Laos. Major wars going on at the time. My parents wanted us to have a better life, so my dad and my mom at the time with 7 children snuck over into Thailand. And once we got into Thailand, we were sponsored by Catholic Charities to come here to Fort Wayne. Raised here ever since. Proud graduate of Southside High School. I also got my undergrad and graduate degree from IPFW, and now I handle public relations. And I really enjoy the community, but we really do need to create some change. I want to be a change maker, and I hope everyone in this room will too. We need to be very inclusive, not just of race and everything. You know, we hear the usual, race, LGBT, but one thing that people don't always talk about is socioeconomic class. And that's one thing we really have to have a discussion about as well. I come from a family of 9 kids. I have a beautiful 19-year-old who decided to make me a grandmother. So I have a wide span of that. I mean, I was just talking to Stephen. I was like, I don't know if I want to talk about being young in this community, being a female, being of Asian descent. I mean, there's so much I could talk about, especially being a young mother and then becoming a young grandmother. So I'm going to let Stephen go and we'll talk a little more.
Awesome.
Can we just everybody use the microphone? We're having some problems here in the back.
Yeah, absolutely. My name is Stephen J. Bailey, and I am born and raised in Fort Wayne, Indiana. I'm 35 years old. I think that my major token thing for being here tonight is being gay. Like Kinsey scale 6 gay, not slightly bisexual, but all. So I grew up in the 07. I went to Fort Wayne Christian my whole life. I ended up graduating from Homestead because of some moral clauses that caused me to leave. So I've lived in the 04, I've lived at DuPont, I live in West Central right now with my husband. We've been together 6 years, we got married last year, which was awesome. Courtney was there. I would say my biggest struggle is it's really interesting to be a white dude in Fort Wayne where everything is handed to you, and then on the other side to be gay where everything is completely taken away from you. And sometimes you can just be silent and pretend to be part of something if you want to, but I think the older you get, if you have any ounce of authenticity in you, that it's really hard to not be yourself. So my family is completely evangelical, born-again Christian, like Benny Hinn, praying in tongues. Yeah. And I have a lot of sympathy, I guess I would say, for that because I did it for 2 decades and I left when I was 22. And I don't have a lot of mean things to say about the church as much as I have a lot of, I guess, disappointment. And I think for me, especially in my family role, I was the baby. My sister is 21 years my senior, and my brother is 19 years my senior. My parents actually found out that they were pregnant with me on my brother's high school graduation. Like 1 day short of an empty nest and then starting over. So, true story. So it's really interesting to be the baby of a family that is highly Christian and whose siblings and all my nephews and nieces and grandparents and parents, everybody is very much tied to this, and then to grow up into it and want to really feel it and want to make everybody happy and realize that it's just not working for you. And then on top of that, to be gay. I've been with Brian for 6 years now, and my family has yet to ever once meet him, which is crazy. I don't even know if some of them know his name. There's just no interest whatsoever. And I think that, I'll try to wrap this up. I think there's a lot of, well, I'll save that for later for the questions. So I think that that's the overview, and I'm excited to be here tonight. Thanks so much.
It's been a while since someone told me their Kinsey rating. Thank you. How to start after that? So I guess I should say that while talking about social constructs and sexuality, we've done ourselves a poor justice of thinking of things in a binary term. So I am Chris Wise, and I am here to represent the transgender community within Fort Wayne. Lucky enough and privileged enough to be able to have a before and after. Without the opportunities I've been given from my family and my tribe of folks that supports me, that wouldn't be possible. Employment in Northeast Indiana for individuals who have transitioned and or will transition at some point in their life is extremely difficult. So when we look at that Maslow's hierarchies, anybody remember back to like psychology, you know, and you were like, yeah, okay, I need some food, I need a house, I need to be able to take care of myself. Without those basic needs in place, which is a huge barrier for the majority of folks in our community, they never reach that self-actualization. So I'm very lucky and privileged to be able to be at that point. Initially when Courtney reached out, I was scrambling to find anybody else but me. As a natural introvert, I was like, oh, I don't want to do that. But I have less of a risk because of my employer and because of my support system than the majority of my peers. So I'll leave it with that.
Yes, perfect. Great evening. I don't believe in good, I believe in great and everything. So great evening. Great evening. I love it. So my name is Jamal Robinson, and I'm the proud founder and chairman for the Robinson Standard Group International. Robinson Standard Group is what I consider above the gold standard. And I take pride in that because it's my last name, and everything I do, I put that level of importance on it. And so I think my purpose in being here is, it's funny you mentioned Fort Wayne Christian. I went to Fort Wayne Christian. Sure. Yeah. It's a great school. And I went there K through 8th grade. and then I graduated from Northrop, and then went on to play soccer at the University of Central Florida before getting a fashion internship. And that fashion internship turned into one of my first business opportunities, which was creating an eyewear line called Desier, which I currently still run till this day, amongst other things. So I think one of the key reasons I'm here is if you look at me, of course, I'm an African American male. I am a Christian, and I have a beautiful girlfriend, and I love everyone. So I think the message that I look forward to sharing with you guys, and the conversation I look forward to having with the other panelists, is about equality and how can we share that love, genuine love, throughout our community. And I think it's more than just the conversation in this room, but it's the after effect of what are we going to do, from this point. How do you turn this room from 100 people to 200 to 300 to 400? I think it's very exciting to be in a room of individuals of like mind, but it's even more challenging to be in a room where you're an outcast and be able to speak the message that we talk about in this room as an outsider to a room of individuals that are totally against you. So that's the conversation I look forward to having with you all, is taking this message and really sharing it to, I wouldn't say the whole city of Fort Wayne, but one person. I believe that's how you change. When I look at a room of individuals, I don't see the whole room, I see one person. And if you get one person to change their ideology, then you can't change the room. If you can change the room, you can change a city. Change a city, change a region, change a country. Change a country, you can change the world. So that's my thought.
I'm John Omler. I guess I'm like the old man in the group. But I'm a transplant, originally from Pennsylvania, a small town very much like Fort Wayne, and then closer, scary, but then you can hear yourself. I promise to make not any cartoon noises, but I'll try not to. So I transplanted from New York just recently, 8 months here. Luckily, along came friends that I actually work with, introduced me to Dan, and got to know the community here, which you're all not easy to find, that's for sure. So I'm happy that we're all getting together and can find safety in numbers, because I was concerned being just recently married to my, right? Sorry, you have to be. I'm a New Yorker. I need crowds around me. I don't like, especially not in all your open fields. So, it's scary. But anyway, just recently married to my husband of, God, not even a year yet. But it's been an amazing journey just moving here. I work for Vera Bradley down the road. Again, not something that I would call a conservative company, but certainly not as liberal as we want them to be. So I'm definitely want to be a voice for all of us with them, with the major employer around here. I do have a hard time actually recruiting people because of some of the politics around our community and around our state. So it's really hard to get young. I work in creative services and marketing and advertising, so it's really hard to get young creatives to move here, especially if they're not very family focused, should we say. There's nothing wrong with 5 kids or 3 kids or all of that, but it's just if they're looking for something fun to do, they have to search it out. So I'm just really kind of looking for a great group of people to be with so that we can continue the conversation. I am registered to vote in the state of Indiana. It was one of the first things I did. We need another one, let's face it, we need as many as we can get. So I look forward to starting and continuing the conversation. And definitely, sorry, I'm an old act-upper, so anything crazy you need me to do, I'm more than willing to do it. Sometimes you need a really loud voice, and that's one thing I have. All right, thank you so much.
Love it. Okay, so I just want to ask a question or two, and then I'd like to open it up to the audience, so be thinking of your questions right now. So in my day job, I work with a lot of regional leaders, and so the question comes up on this whole diversity and inclusion issue. So my question to you is, what do you think the biggest challenges in this community in diversity and inclusion, and what would you say, if we could do this, this would really help us take a step forward in this community on this issue? So either an obstacle or a way you see, hey, if we could do this, I'd really love to tell the leaders if we did this, this would help. Either way you want to look at that side of the coin. And that's open to anyone. Stephen is happy to share the mic with you.
Quit talking and acting. So I am on
Yes, a group with me.
a group with Courtney, and we had this discussion this morning, and looking in the room, there's not much diversity there. And one of the things I leaned over to, we had roundtable discussion, one of the things I brought up is we need to quit just talking and we need to start acting. Because the conversation we were talking about was inclusivity. Sorry. And one of the things I brought up is we all talk about it, but that community doesn't necessarily go into the other community to have that conversation. If I wasn't sitting there and I didn't have the opportunity, they would have heard my voice. They wouldn't have understood anything. I brought up some of the issues that I faced when I first came to America, or my family faced. I was a baby when we came. So I shared some of those stories, and it opened their eyes, but are they willing to act on it? I think the biggest thing is acting on what you say.
For me, I think it's the idea that my experience here in Fort Wayne, Indiana, is that there is no way that two viewpoints can coexist ever. Especially like my family would be a perfect example. This is what is true, and I think my family's notorious for saying, well, honey, if you don't believe it, it doesn't mean that's not true. Like, I know you don't want to believe in Jesus, but it doesn't mean that we won't see you in hell. And that just, because I want to respect them, and I never want to put them down, and I want them to talk about their Christianity and about their lives and about everything they believe in, but I would just like an equal seat at the table, where I can talk about my husband, or I can invite him over for dinner, I could talk about what I did that day, or whatever that entailed. And I think in Fort Wayne it'd just be really great if we could look at each other's, political views or religions or races or, whatever sex somebody is, and just say that just because I believe this, it doesn't mean that what you believe is not valid. But it means that I can learn from you because you're different from me, and every single stepping point that somebody makes in life, nobody knows what anybody else goes through. The other black women in this room, you have that in common, but at the same time, you don't know what their life was like. Just like me being a gay dude in this room with other gay guys, I have no idea what your lives are like or what you've been through. And if I sat down at a table, I would be pleasantly surprised about what you have gone through just to arrive here today. And I think if we all just left room to recognize that we have more in common than we have in different, that would be amazing.
If you guys could just project just a little bit more, we're struggling with the volume, we're trying in the back. We turned off the air, so it's going to get a little warm, but please know we did that so that we could
Try to hear.
So you can hear. So.
Project, please.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. I'd have to agree with both of the panelists, and I think really what it comes down to is speaking to the leaders of Northeast Indiana is having representation at the table. You can't communicate, and what I mean by that is in particular, as an African American male, I can go to as many social clubs and social outings on the southeast side of Fort Wayne and talk about, in our local community, the southeast side of Fort Wayne, what we can be doing better. But at the end of the day, Fort Wayne, since I'm sure you all know, the 40s, 20s, 30s, 50s, has been widely controlled by what a lot of people call a good old boys club. It is what it is, but for this region to change, it takes decision makers to make that change. So even though as a groundswell we can be doing so much and advocating so much on the lower level, if we don't individually and collectively as a group, individuals who are passionate and encourage change amongst all levels, no matter if it's race, LGBT community, etc. If we don't get to that table, our voices, unfortunately, in this community won't be heard. So over time, I think that's what needs to change, is we need to have individuals at the decision-making table, and those voices and those opinions need to be spread. Because I just haven't seen it. I've seen a lot of talk, as you mentioned, about diversity, things need to change, but who's making the decision? And why hasn't that decision, or why haven't those actions been changed? So again, to second what my other panelists said, is we need to have individuals' voices at the decision-making table. Once we get to that decision-making table, then it's up to us, the community, to support that, no matter what.
There has to be some level of accountability of every person that's sitting in this room right now. Something as simple that I took notice of, if you look at Greater Fort Wayne Inc., Road to 1 Million, the Visitors Bureau, their commercials that they run touting Fort Wayne, it's not reflective of who we are. So how do we get talent to come to Fort Wayne and feel welcome and want to be here? If we're not acknowledging and holding the powers to be accountable, then it will be business as usual. You have 100+ people here. Each of you should be telling someone else about this evening. It's going to go on again and again. Don't only get active when we're have an election. Be active in your community. Be a voice. Don't be silent. Because we know and understand that there is a good old boy network, and they're aging out. Inevitably, they will die. But in the meantime, be active, be a voice. Don't just, I said we have to hold everyone accountable. Be aware of what's going on in the city. Be aware of what's happening, not after the fact, but be engaged, be active, use your intellect, use your capacity to be change makers. So next month there should be 200 people here. I'm sure you got a lot of feedback on what people want to see. You know, get goal oriented and make some things happen. There's power in numbers, and there's power in voices.
I just have to put a disclaimer out there too. When I mention Good Old Boys Club, I talk about individuals I know and I love and who are friends of mine. And I say that in a way to say, I don't think people have bad intentions. I think deep down, I mean, we're born as babies. We don't come out negative. I think people are, people get their capacity to learn from their experience. I always say it's experience equals education. And so when we speak to those decision makers, myself, you, whomever, it's not like you guys need to change because this needs to happen. No, it's we need to educate them, like Stephen was saying. Hey, just have a conversation. Because if someone's perspective is this, and after they have a conversation with you, it's this, then you've given them a different experience, something that they may not have ever experienced. And so I wanted to put that disclaimer on my words so it's not taken out of context. I don't think the leaders in Fort Wayne are totally doing a negative job, no matter if it's professional or government. What I think my purpose in saying the Good Old Boys Club is my message, your message to individuals who have decision-making power is to give them a different perspective that they may not have known or understood from an African-American male or from a transgender individual or from somebody in the LGBT community. They just may not have had the experience. And so it's up to us to share with them that experience. And so then when they go speak to somebody else, they don't say, oh, hey, Jamal, that black kid, he's negative. He was aggressive. He said nobody cares about Southeast Fort Wayne or Fort Wayne in general or minority males. They say, no, you know, maybe that guy's got something. And then when they speak to somebody else that looks just like me, they may give them the time of day. But if we don't address individuals who don't see eye to eye, then they may just be closed off. And then that good old boys club, good old girls club, whatever the case may be, is always going to stay the same. But if we show everybody love, and we treat everybody with respect, and we voice our opinion, then I think that will open people's experiences. And that's up to us, again, to do it with love.
I honestly think in Indiana currently we're kind of a public relations nightmare. We can't recruit companies the way we should. We can't retain graduates the way we should. And the way we can. But I think it's going to take individuals on both areas of recognizing diversity as well as the majority or those that hold power or authority to get uncomfortable. And I don't see a lot of movement where folks are willing to get uncomfortable in our community. That makes me a downer. Sorry about that. But I think there's some reality to that.
So I want to ask, I testified in January on behalf of LGBT rights, and something that I saw is that there's, I don't know if it's the majority or not, but of people who think this is just a PR nightmare, which it is, but if they just got to know us, they would see how inclusive we are. And I tend to be of the persuasion that there is some work that needs to be done here at home. It is not just a PR issue. And so I just wonder if any of you would feel comfortable sharing any of your experiences. Do you feel Fort Wayne is welcoming? Have you had challenges? And if so, what are those? If you feel comfortable sharing, any of you.
It's about getting uncomfortable, right?
Yeah, right? It's like the awkward conversations.
Yeah, not awkward, right? Again, I think it goes, it's about having the conversation, right? And I found, what was interesting, what I found about the community in Fort Wayne, or the community that I found, a lot of people live their lives on Facebook and social media. And that's how you kind of discover organizations like this, or art openings, or events going on around town. So I think continuing the conversation, having the conversation out loud. Right? We can all have the conversation at a dinner table with our friends. It's different having a conversation with our enemies, or with people that we don't know, not yet know. And that's what I'm finding is an interesting part of Fort Wayne, and part of Fort Wayne culture, and probably part of the culture of towns across America. But again, it's about, I have the same conversation with the 84-year-old neighbor that lives next to me as I do with a gay art director who works with me, right? It's the same conversation. I don't change it based on the audience. And I think too many times we're changing the conversation based on the audience. And you've got to your point, you have to accept their opinion, but I don't have to believe in their opinion, right? And there's no reason why I can't have the conversation against it. And also to celebrate the good news. Fort Wayne has such amazing things that happen here that we hear about the crisis down in Indianapolis and all the crazy stuff. I won't even mention the P word, but I'm not a fan of his. Right? But we hear more about that than we hear about the good stuff. So it does really, I really challenge everybody to get on your social media and really, talk up the town. Again, I went to Penn State, which is very, very not a diverse campus. So it was very hard, and I was an ambassador there, and it was very difficult when you had a student come on board that you knew it was going to be a difficult conversation, and you tried to put into a culture or on cultural events that we had, and it came off as unauthentic. So it's like, how do we have those authentic moments? I have the same thing, like when I bring people in from New York or Chicago, and I'm driving them throughout Fort Wayne and downtown Fort Wayne, it's not like anymore in 2016 we expect to see a Latin community, an African American community. Those days are over. So again, what they're doing though, like we're all Google freaks. So again, all that stuff that you put out there on social media shows up in Google, or they can find it, and that's important to have that conversation and keep it going.
Open it up to the audience.
I would just say this made me think of when I wanted to ask Brian to marry me. I didn't even tell my closest friends, and we wanted to do it in a setting. Well, I wanted to do it in a setting that was just very natural, and my idea was to go to J.K. O'Donnell's, where we go a lot with all of our friends, and just pop the question and it just be really normal, like we live our lives. And I thought it through, and I thought, shit, there's totally a chance that somebody's going to give me a look, or somebody's going to make me feel bad, or somebody is going to whisper into somebody's ear, like when he says yes. And I wasn't willing to take that risk because that was an active risk to me. So I literally booked hotels in Fort Wayne or in Chicago for all of our friends, and we had to go someplace we'd never been. And we ended up having a magical night, but I really wish that that could have happened here, but I was not willing to take that chance. And it's things like that that break my heart. And I hope this isn't a sob story. I will just say on the side note, after everything I've told you, I have a really great life. Like, I do. I have an amazing life. I have a great husband and I have great friends that have become our family, and we're just so lucky. So things are good. Don't worry about us. But on another note, I think my biggest thing that I know when things will be okay in Fort Wayne is when I can reach across and like grab his hand when we're walking our dogs and not think about it. When I do it, I have to, because I'm just a very self-conscious person. I'm always aware of what's happening and how I'm going to handle it and what comes next. And I'm always like, okay, so I'm about ready to do this, and so who's watching, and what is my reaction if somebody gives me any beef, because I'm going to put them in their place. So what am I going to say, and how am I going to do this, and how do I still be a respectable person, and how do I not take this personally? You know, like that's what I go through to like hold his hand, not to like make out with him, just to hold his hand. And we went out to dinner a month ago, went to Main Street Bistro, had a fantastic night, and we're walking across literally one street to go to our car. And I just like, God, this is such a good night. Like, thanks, baby. Like, it's such a good time. I reach out, grab his hand. We're not even to the car yet, and a group of white straight boys drives by and says something out the window. And it's not, I didn't take it personal because I've just arrived at a whole new level of how to handle that, but it just breaks my heart for our community that I'm like, are you serious? Like, I can't even go on a date with my husband, like not my boyfriend from 1950 that I'm hiding like as my roommate, but my husband walks in my car after all the work I put into my community every week, and I have to deal with some frat boy that then I have to like tell off just so I can have a good night. So that's kind of my answer to that.
So with me, obviously, being a young Asian woman in this community, doors don't open for me. I have to push them open. Coming from a family of my size and dealing with 5 older brothers, I've learned how to do that. And so if I want a seat at the table, I make that happen. And I think each one of us should do that. I sit on a lot of committees. I end up being the token young Asian person, but guess what? I'm there at the table. It took a long time, especially when I represent an organization that's very diverse. I had to make that happen. I had no choice. That's my bread and butter. So I made it happen. But that opened the door for a lot of the other social type nonprofit organizations I'm involved with now. But it's really, it's not open. You have to force the door open.
My son is a graduate from Southside, 2014, and he's going to be in his junior year down at IU Bloomington. He had an impact on his late father's thinking. Just want to say that when he came, recently Scott came home for the summer, and he said that what he really misses about Fort Wayne is the diversity. He says, Mom, it's just so, I'm sorry, white there, and he's, a mixture of things. So I think that there's hope because his expanded mind has happened during his years of going to Fort Wayne Community Schools in Southside. So I think we have something that's growing here, and it's positive, and we all need to be encouraged.
Other questions or thoughts from our
stories?
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. Somebody else? Okay. Well, I was just thinking, we're talking about decision makers. Maybe we need to invite them here and have them listen to the stories. So that was my thought that I wanted to share. So maybe we can make that happen for one of the next meetings.
Yes.
So I have 2 questions, and I'm really trusting that you guys are saying that this is a safe space, because the second question is possibly will come off as self-promoting, but I promise it's not. It's a legitimate question. Okay. So the first question is like, so I've been a woman since birth. I've been targeted for my race since age 6. I've been an LGBT ally since age 15, and I've worked with disadvantaged youth since age 20. And one of the things that's so heartbreaking to me is that so many of these groups are so discriminatory against each other and within themselves. So I still work with black children who make fun of the darker black children. I still work with, LGBT gay youth who make fun of the transgendered youth. And so it's so frustrating to be like, you are this person. Why are you doing this? So I would love to hear sort of your thoughts on that, like the need for intersectionality, the need for this kind of cooperation between groups and this kind of acknowledgement within the community, like each of our individual communities are doing great things, but are we truly understanding and recognizing that same mission in the other communities as much as we should? Do you want to answer that one first before I get to my second, slightly more self-serving one?
It's a great question. I think what it comes down to, why are, I'd say, young people doing that? And I'd have to blame that, or not blame that, but I think it's societal.
Right.
It's because of media. I graduated high school 10 years ago, and I go into the high schools and I talk to the young people, and the pressures that they have are, when I even look at it, 10 years removed, is just astronomical. So I think there's a lot of societal pressures that, feeling as they are a part of a group and, in a sense, belittling another group gives them some type of authoritarian power. And I think that is, that message is being communicated via media. And in particular, that message is prevalent on social media. When I went to school, Snake was the best thing I could do with my cell phone. But now kids, you may not know Snake. But now kids have access and resources to communicate to other kids, and that's where cyberbullying has now taken place of bullying. Growing up, it was, you had a certain limitation in your understanding of the world was a certain way. And even then it was hierarchical, something like that. But I think now young people struggle with having the perception and getting the exposure to what media has done to them. And I think that is the main cause of having individuals in the same race, gender, or community bully themselves. I think that bullying is the key thing there. That hasn't changed since, the beginning of time. Slavery, before slavery, someone's always got to be top and someone's always got to be bottom. It's really, how do we get young people to change that conversation to where they don't feel like somebody has to be lower, somebody has to be higher. But I commend you for your work with young people, because I think that's where it really changes. Again, I don't believe anybody's born with hate, and young people aren't born with that notion to bully or be above someone. They're taught that, whether in the home environment, from what they see on social media, or from what they experience. So it's individuals like yourself that, if you can, stop a child or get a child to expand their perspective, then bullying across the board will cease. But I think that's really what it's sent down to.
And really, just to add to what you just said, I used to work with youth as well. And I guess my pearl of wisdom to you is this: know that if it's just one child that you reach, you're changing generations. And sometimes we feel very overwhelmed when we're giving and we are serving, and we see how our children are handling and dealing with one another. Just know if it's just one, it changes generations. We live in a society that's label ridden. Everything is a label, from color, socioeconomic labels, labels, labels. So you continue to do the work within your community, be a change maker, and you are definitely making a change. I can't give you an answer to change it because you're dealing with cultural issues within a culture, within a community, within a society. But don't stop serving your children. Keep giving them that positive messaging and know that you are making a change. I'm 48, and when the advent of Facebook, I have people who reach out to me from 30 years ago and say, Ms. Chambers, thank you for talking to me, and da-da-da-da, and it goes on and goes on. So know that you are being a change maker. Don't feel overwhelmed because it's a big task. Until we get rid of labels, this is where we'll be.
Self-survey question? Yeah. I'm interested in what you say.
It's so funny because you were talking about labels and, you know, going off of what you said, and it's so funny. When the first time my husband was here, I did hold his hand. Because you know what, instead of worrying about the bullies that are going to call you names, look at the 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Look at the young kid who's looking at you and saying, that's okay. That's okay, because that's how change starts. Again, it's about the mixing of cultures as we see more and more of it. It's okay, you know. And I deal in an industry that we look at, you know, people don't believe we're a global culture. We're a global culture. You know, we don't produce things just in one country. They come from all over the world. And we really, you know, have to look at ourselves and look at, say, what can we do to make that change here, and we can be great representatives no matter where we're at. So I think that's what you're doing. I think that's what we all can do.
Can I just say something? I don't want to get into like the mass conspiracy of people up here for us to all turn on each other, take each other out so they can just stay on top, all right? But where else do children's pain go? I mean, they're going to go towards the people that are closest to them. And so really any bully is just in a bunch of pain, and so they have to find a way to feel control somewhere when everything else is out of control. So to me, it makes perfect sense.
And I'm constantly frustrated with the stories I hear from people who feel when they came into the community that they experienced professionals in my field that tried to control where they wanted to live. So I guess I'm throwing the white elephant up there on the stage to ask all of you, you know, have you had those experiences? What can you share with this group? And do you have any ideas of how we can, you know, begin to overcome that if that's something you've experienced?
I was very lucky I didn't, which was great. I had a gentleman that works for us reach out to me, who actually he just got married last month. So I was lucky to find somebody diverse, and my real estate agent really took me to communities that really wasn't judged, but I was loving it because she literally took me to all different kind of communities, right? Whether I was in the Southwest, whether I was here in the South, 07, 04, I don't know any other ones other than that. But, you know, and just really got to see it, and that's where I kind of fell in love with the place, because you can, you know, coming from a 500 square foot apartment in Brooklyn Heights is outrageously expensive, to being able to, you know, have a 2-bedroom condo is a good gig for me. But you do worry, but then again, you do worry about what community will accept me, right? And I think that's always a part. But you know, I love the idea of learning is a two-way street. I live in a community that's, let's say, older, because it is a condo community. But again, it's about being who you are and true to who you are, and just making sure that, you know, I'm not going to be bullied by anyone, especially a 50-year-old man. I'm not going to allow myself to be bullied by anyone. But it took me a long time to get there, right? And that's, I think it's just a matter of allowing yourself to be who you are. But I didn't experience that, which I was lucky. I don't know if anybody else did. Maybe here. Great.
Not in Fort Wayne, but my sister went through an experience like that. She's a single mom in Dayton, Ohio, and she wanted to move into a certain community. And it's really taken a toll on her. It's her first house. Went through the whole process, got the loan, went through that whole kit and boodle. And the real estate agent, the development she wanted to live in was a pretty nice development. And she got to know the area a little bit, and they're building it out, so they had a spec house and then a few other houses. And come to find out, it was really families, young families. So, suburbia lifestyle. And I don't know who found out. Maybe it was just by choice, but her being a single mom, all of a sudden wanting to move in this community, it was like a door was shut. And so they said the lot in this community is no longer available for what she wanted, but we have another community that we could put you in for this, I think they said a better price or something. And there was a special on their website that gave her a deal, and she said, no, but on your website it still says the deal is valid. And they said, oh, the website's wrong. And then like the last day before she wanted to close, the individual that was working on her lot and her land said, oh, I'm not in the office. It's not going to move forward with the old lot, but we can do the new lot. And so my sister drove by and she saw the individual's car there, and she's like, she straight up lied. And then come to find out the place that they wanted to move her to was primarily diverse, more diverse than the other area. And it wasn't in a nice area like my sister had hoped. And so again, I don't have personal experience through that, but just going through my sister, that really took a toll on her. She's again, single mom, and she worked really, really hard to save her money and have the opportunity to get to her first home. And now she doesn't have that opportunity because it was taken away from, now it's in legal proceedings. And so the company knew they messed up because they tried to settle right away. They said, hey, look, we're sorry, we want to settle this, and we don't want to go through it. But my sister said no. But again, no amount of money or no judgment that they can give her besides going to the lot she was going to get is going to take away that, because it's an experience that was taken away from her for whatever reason. And obviously the company felt they were in the wrong because they did try to settle. But it's just tough seeing a loved one go through something like that. She's, again, very excited, months on the process, and then I don't know what happened, but somebody got wind of it, and it didn't happen. And, it's unfortunate, but that's the society we live in.
Are you wrapping up? Or
Yeah,
can I just say one more thing? I just wanted to say that as important as tonight is, the only thing that you can do in your own lives that's more important than starting something so wonderfully as this is to just be yourself in your community and to be active and to be conscious and to live your life. And that was going to be my answer to that question tonight, which is, what do I do? I don't start a center. I'm not necessarily a big brother, but I would love to talk to you after this. Seriously. I felt that so deeply, and you're a perfect example. Like, just from you talking, like, I was getting emotional because it's such a part of who you are, that as a human being, I can feel you. And so being gay for me is like such a small thing. Like, it's all we're talking about tonight, but there's so many other things to me that I don't think that gay is like my defining thing. When people are like, do you know Steven? It's not really, I feel like, even my top 5. It's just, yeah, he's got a husband. And so my thing is to just be really conscious and to be positive, because I am happy, and to be letting people know that it's possible to have peace, to have what I consider a really great relationship with God, to feel centered, to feel my own version of success and what that means for me, to have it all, which for me is to have a husband and to have a home and have some dogs and have a career that I adore and to have friends that have my back. And every single day, like when people, I'm so fortunate to work with so many people, and when they come to my office, they see his picture behind me, and they might not have known it when they sent me an email and set up that interview, but when they leave, they know I'm gay. And when they get done with the project, even though I never said those words, they know Steven killed it. He did exactly what I wanted. He delivered results. And by the way, he's a homosexual. And that's how you change people's minds. It's not by being like, I'm gay and I'm voting for this person and this big Facebook post. As much as those things sometimes are needed and we need to vent and get stuff out, at the end of the day, if you can just be conscious in your day-to-day life, that's how you make a change. And then, secondary, if we can come together and have camaraderie and have people that have your back, because I come home sometimes and it's like, oh my God, baby, like, this post on social media and this bumper sticker, and I overheard this thing at JK's at lunch, and like, why aren't we moving to Portland? Like, I can't take this anymore. Seriously, like, I have days where it's hard, it's really hard, but then I come here and I think, like, if I run into one of you in a day and you say just something that I know is consciously above the ground and just makes me feel like a human being, that will take over the 20 BS things I had to deal with that day that I felt were just so subhuman. So I just wanted to encourage you all that, like, just live your life and to be conscious and be kind and to let other people sit at the table. And we can't be putting other people down for our differences. Instead, we need to say, okay, and maybe you don't agree with that, but it's okay that you're here and you have a human experience, and wow, what it must be like to be you, and this is what it's like to be me, and how can we, like, share this space together so that people can get married, so that people can have reproductive rights, so that people can vote for who they want to vote for without being shamed. And there's a long list of things that we all deserve at the end of the day, and I think that's why we're here. So, thank you.
Any more than that, my main takeaways from tonight are use your voice, be who you are. And I just want everyone to give the biggest round of applause for our